What's the worst reason you hooked up with someone? Story 1. To get revenge on my ex, cheating. She was her little, in her sorority or some bullshit. She had a terrible personality, but was very hot. Similar thing, but it was to get revenge on a friend for stealing my ex. I was studying abroad for the summer. And while that was going on, he was hanging out almost every day with my then girlfriend. When I came back, they both sat me down to explain how they'd been spending a lot of time together and wanted to pursue things. It was less a, we want your blessing, and more of a, this is what's going to happen, so you have to deal with it. Sure enough, a few weeks later, she broke up with him, and he called me to apologize, saying how he never should have done that to a friend. Blah blah blah. I was still pretty damn hurt, and it broke my trust in him. But I was too exhausted to care anymore. Fast forward a few months, and he had started seeing a new girl. They were still in the early stages of dating, and nothing official, but he was really into her. So of course, when I ran into her at a friend's birthday party, I railed the shit out of her after some back and forth flirting. Younger me was both horny and vindictive. Story 2. My best friend, I'm male, she's female, hadn't had sex in a year and asked me. We stopped being friends in any capacity after that. Damn, was it that bad? Wasn't bad. Was just super awkward afterwards. I had a very similar experience. She was divorced after her marriage failed within a year. Guy was a total piece of shit. We had been very close friends for almost 15 years at the time, though it somehow never worked out. Hardly any gap where we both were single. Anyway, we met up loads after her recent divorce. She started being rather upfront about wanting to see me, which was somewhat out of character for her, being so adamant towards me. Started hinting at it at some point, but being a man means I only really got those hints in retrospect. Then I met a woman online, a very nice woman. Had a first date with her. My best friend wanted to meet up again, so we did. We went for breakfast. She was on about how her ex-husband neglected her sexual needs for most of the time, followed by telling me how good she thinks I looked, and how we should just get it over with. So I decided to go for it. Since I'd only been on one date with this woman, I'd always felt my friend was very attractive. So, let's go. We went to my place, drank tea for a bit. She repeatedly told me not to get feelings, which I had in the past. Then got it on, and it was amazing. She thanked me afterwards. I asked if we were going to make this a regular thing, and she said it all depended on me, and how I would act on future dates with that woman I met. Then left home. After I kind of processed what happened, I went to my best friend, who happens to be gay, and he said it was about time we got it out of the way, followed by if I was going to have sex with my other friends now, too. Spoilers, I didn't. I decided to plan a second date with the woman I met. I didn't develop feelings for my close friend afterwards. She had some issues she needed to work out, which I needed to do in the past, and have, with her support as well. I met up with my close friend a few times after. It wasn't that awkward, but she kept dropping huge hints, like how she could never have a one-night stand. Feelings had to be involved. I still didn't realize she meant she had developed feelings for me. 'Cause men need the subtlety of a sledgehammer when it comes to this. I kinda laughed it off, thinking we had a solid enough friendship to do such a thing. Besides, I was still dating that woman I had met. Quite soon she started getting colder, and eventually told me she wanted to break off contact completely. I wasn't too surprised, since the friendship we had shifted enormously, especially in retrospect. Later, the woman I was dating told me my close friend had given her some snark behind my back, and she did not deserve this at all. In conclusion, I can honestly say my close friend and I literally f***ed up our friendship. I don't regret a thing in that regard. The woman I was dating is my wife of almost 4 years now, and we have a son together. The only thing I regret is the timing, right in between the first and second date of my now wife. She deserves more than that. Before people ask, my wife knows. I told her before we decided to move in with one another, since she deserved to know what she was getting into. I told her it was out of character for me to do such a thing. That I only regret the timing. But that, in the past, I've made it a thing to only go on dates with one woman at the time. I felt it wasn't cheating. We weren't an item back then. But the timing made it questionable. And she needed to know before we got to the serious stage of living together. Story 3. Noticed a girl picking up on numerous drunk guys at a party, taking them to a back room for a few minutes each, then coming back out, with the guys smiling. I was horny and wanted in on that action, but was too shy to act on it. Didn't matter. She eventually set her sights on me, and I went. While I was in the midst of it, she was bragging that I was the 14th guy that night. Didn't matter to me at the time, but I felt disgusted afterward. I should mention this was pre-AIDS time. I did get an STD though. Had to go to the free clinic for a shot the next week. When you said that you were the 14th, I immediately thought, this sounds like how you get an STD. And sure enough. Story 4. He cheated on me with his roommate's girlfriend. So, obviously his roommate and I hooked up for some revenge. It was excellent. And I regret nothing. This is just swinging with extra steps. If only they could get past the betrayal. I mean, obviously. What other course of action did you have? In all seriousness, kudos. Were the cheaters pissed when they found out? What was the end result? Hella pissed. An end result is that I had much better for a few weeks. A good laugh, and much less toxicity in my life. Story 5. Hooked up with cougar on an airplane. Because she wanted to thank me for my service. I was 21. Flying back from a school. When American Airlines upgraded my seat to first class. They sat me next to this cougar that had to be in her mid-40. That happened to work for the VA. We talked for a while. And she kept buying me shots. When all of a sudden, she looked around and said, "When I get up, wait 2 minutes, then come to the airplane bathroom." When the stewardess pushes the tray to the rear. I did as instructed. And was damn near torn apart by this woman in the worst smelling place ever. The weird part was, everyone knew, and no one said anything to us. Though, after the plane ride, she gave me a hug and her business card. And told me if I ever needed VA help, send her an email. Best care a vet has ever gotten from the VA. Story 6. To save someone else's relationship. A guy in our friend group, that we only kept around out of pity, was a big fat dude. Arrogant, and just not a great person. Actually met a nice woman that he didn't deserve. What did the dumb do? Invite another girl out with all of us, in an attempt to make her jealous. Maybe. Understandably, his girlfriend was upset. And because she was such a nice woman, I jumped on the hand grenade. God, that's an awkward friend group. I was happy when I heard later that night, when he was drunk again, and leaning out of his girlfriend's Jeep as they were driving. And he hit his face on a 1-inch thick vine hanging from a tree. Story 7. I was emotionally compromised and wanted to use a person that I cared. Nothing about to make me feel better about a situation that I couldn't fix. I appreciate your honesty. Honestly, 99% of people do this at one point in their life, whether they admit to it or not. You admitting to it, even if it's anonymous, says a lot. Or maybe I'm just like you and want to feel better about myself. And I'm just a crazy rando. Therapy, here I come. Let me tell you, hooking up while going through grief is not the way. It was my first death, so I wanted to escape. I have learned from my actions. Story 8. Because she asked. I was visiting a friend in a different part of the state, and she introduced me to one of her friends, and she gave her my AOL username. This was back in the late 90s. A few days after returning home, I received a message from that person asking for a one-night stand. A man has to comply to the AOL lady. It's just sound reasoning.